Ragnarok, the final battle between God and man. A tournament to end all tournaments, where 13 of the strongest humans to have ever walked the earth square up against 13 of Valhalla's most fearsome warriors. This is an extremely interesting setting because you can basically throw any fictional universe into the tournament against the gods and it will result in absolute cinema. Take One Punch Man for example. What if the Ragnarok occurred in this world of heroes and monsters? And hypothetically, what if not just humans, but all mortals were allowed to participate? Which warriors would Brunhilde choose to fight for the fate of humanity? If this video does well, I promise I'll cover that topic and much more Record of Ragnarok in general. I love this series and I have tons of video ideas for it, so if you'd like to see it, make sure to share, hype, and like this video. But today we will be focusing on one particular mortal from One Punch Man entering the tournament. In her quest to find the strongest, Brunhilde would discover the existence of a being so powerful, so imposing, that the entire universe bows when he walks. Fast forward to the tournament. The first matches required top-tier humans for the mortals, people who could show both the divine and the sinners that man could topple God. And with the gods coming out swinging heavy with Thor, Zeus, and Poseidon in the early rounds, heavy hitters like Saitama and Blast are unfortunately forced out to fight early, leaving heavy gaps in the mortals roster for the later rounds. Thankfully, the betrayer Buddha fills some of that void, fighting for humanity and bringing the score to an even 3-3. However, in exchange, an even more terrifying opponent takes his place in the gods roster. Hades, King of Helheim. Brunhilde is forced to respond and sends out one of One Punch Man's most vile, most ferocious and powerful heavy hitters. Come round 7, and Lord Boros, Dominator of the Universe, steps into the ring and faces down Hades, King of Helheim. Now, don't worry, I'll cover Boros versus some other gods briefly too, but man, I am dying to talk about my GOAT Hades, and Season 3 is his season, so I think it fits. Also, just a heads up, I will be glazing in this video. I love both of these guys. They're both in my top 10 favorite anime characters of all time. Sorry not sorry, I will be taking the more favorable interpretations for them.
My name is Boros. Come and give stimulation to my existence. That is why I am here.
Starting with Boros, you know the drill by now. Through a multitude of statements, implications, and feats, Boros massively upscales from characters like Tatsumaki, who in turn outclass Lord Orochi, who can suck the Earth's core with enough force to destroy small planets. This is due to him pulling a chunk of the Earth's core through the layers of the Earth, and the kinetic energy required to do this is insane. This is Orochi's vacuuming force, which the King's actual attacks should outclass. Then he gets one shot, comes back fused with the Esper Psychos and a boost from God, believes he can turn the guy who previously one-shot him into fodder, then grows roots across the city and absorbs even more power to the point that Tatsumaki notices a big increase. Then Tatsumaki, while critically injured and weak, and makes Psychos Orochi call her the true monster here, as she proceeds to absolutely terrify and one-shot her. Then Tatsumaki at full health replicates this kind of power with a mere flick of her finger, and Boros in my eyes should scale above Tatsumaki, even just in his released form. The gap between Boros and that Orochi vacuum cleaner feat is so gigantic that in the past I have estimated that it would place released Boros at large planet level. And for the highball, because yes, that was not the highball I told you, I glaze Boros and Hades like no one else. In my eyes, it is feasible to scale Boros to a fraction of Saitama's power. Essentially, it boils down to Saitama blatantly saying Boros is strong 3 times, and I quote, almost a real fight. For Saitama, someone who genuinely cannot tell the difference between a monster's power, to say this, he'd have to be feeling something against Boros. Even if it's like feeling a baby whale against you, it would still mean Boros is capable of making Saitama feel something. The difference is vast, obviously, but Boros being 100 or 1,000 times weaker than Saitama would still equate to him being around galaxy to multi-galaxy level, if you believe he scales to a fraction of the Sirius Punch Squared, for instance. I will say I am not pushing this line of scaling as definitive, I am just saying it is a possible high-end interpretation, and it is totally fine to go against it. But I will say Boros might need it in this matchup. As for speed, it's relatively simple. Boros should upscale massively from most characters in the show, including early series characters who have various lightspeed feats like dodging or cutting lasers, which specifically have been stated to move at light speed and stated to have the properties of light. Through a scaling chain comparing various characters, you can get combatants like Flashy Flash to around 100 times the speed of light just based off of how much faster they are than early series Genos and Garo. This range is surprisingly consistent with higher-end calculations for the Constellation feat, which can get to hundreds or even to thousands of times light speed. But those are high-ends and kind of outliers among most calculations of these feats. But it doesn't stop here. Platinum S and Garo soon grow to surpass the 100 times faster than light Flashy Flash immensely, and by the end of the fight Garo grows so fast that he outright blitzes Platinum S. Then Garo in his later forms grows massively faster, and then casual, suppressed, intentionally not going for the kill Saitama blocks hits from Peak Gargoyle Garo with one hand. Meanwhile, a more serious, less suppressed Saitama is getting tagged while blocking with two hands by one-handed Boros, and Boros is stated to have rivaling abilities to the suppressed Saitama. I will admit it's definitely debatable if released Boros is faster than Gargoyle Garo, but I told you I am going with the more generous interpretation, and in the end it actually shouldn't change the outcome much. But under this interpretation, released Boros would be faster than Gargoyle Garo, and in total this is like 6 or 7 massive gaps above Flashy Flash, who is already nearly 100 times lightspeed. Boros in his released form would be easily well over 1,000 times faster than light under this interpretation, and at the lowest he'd still be over 100 times lightspeed.
I will never lose, not to anyone, and I swear it as your elder brother.
Hades, king of the underworld, is a terrifying force within the Record of Ragnarok world. I have always firmly believed that he is a top-tier god, and the anime added some extra juicy statements outright calling him the strongest of them all. Now, I crave to make a solo Hades video in the same style I did for Boros way back in the day, so please let me know if you'd like to see it. But for now, I'll just say he should scale to most feats in the series, barring some things like the Time Punch. But where would that leave the King of Hell? Record of Ragnarok is a difficult series to scale because there is a massive discrepancy in what is shown versus what is stated. Going simply by the raw showings, usually characters just break some floors or walls or destroy some buildings. The most impressive showing is Lubu splitting the clouds, which, while impressive, just look at what One Punch Man cloud splitting looks like. On a surface level, someone like Boros seems like he would wipe the entire roster with no difficulty. However, there is a very simple reason for the low scale of the series. It is confined to an arena with tons of spectators. The very nature of this series doesn't really allow for flashy nukes or wide-scale destruction. The authors can't have every single attack destroying the planet or something crazy like that. Think of Goku vs. Hit in Dragon Ball Super, for example. They barely destroyed some tiles, but obviously we shouldn't downplay them because of that. We have attacks so destructive that they literally get banned from usage in Hell, but in the tournament it appears to only be marginally larger than the arena, and that's kind of it, and obviously that doesn't really make much sense. These attacks just really have to be scaled down to fit into the tournament setting. There's just no really getting around that. But in the end, the entire narrative is that if the humans lose, the gods will wipe humanity off the face of the planet with a snap of their fingers, and humanity can do nothing against that. They can bring floods, ice ages, meteors, and so much more. You can't really rely on feats to scale the series, you have to rely on the narrative and the statements. Otherwise, you end up with gods who can wipe humanity being city block level, and that is just completely false. So with all that being said, just how strong are these gods really? First, it is important to understand a little bit about the cosmology of Record of Ragnarok. The world, or universe depending on the translation, is made up of 3 realms, all of which are relative in size. We know for a fact that Midgard is actually the size of our living universe, as we have many references to the cosmos and galaxies in the series, and have actually been shown other planets and space, and the Big Bang is canon, implying the existence of a universe. What's most confusing is Midgard is also referred to as Earth, so some have said it would only be one planet, but we blatantly know the cosmos exists in the mortal realm, so no, even if it's called Earth sometimes, it is the actual universe. Heaven and Helheim are the same size as Midgard, also placing them as universal-sized realms. All of this is important because we have plenty of statements for the gods being able to destroy the world. Shiva casually creates and destroys worlds, he will burn down and rebuild the world with his dance. Zeus can create things out of nothing and destroy them as he pleases. Thor can shatter the earth, and this one is particularly unclear, as earth can mean planet or the whole universe. Chaos by Beelzebub threatens to swallow the heavens if it wasn't weakened by Tesla, though this one is a lot more questionable. Zeus can also destroy heaven according to Shiva, which is a universal-sized realm. And the Big Bang is treated as an exciting event, which Zeus and the gods older than him lived through, though it is unclear if they actually tanked it or just observed it from another realm. Depending on what exactly is meant with the word world, in a lot of these instances the characters can be planetary or universal, and there is really nothing in between, oddly enough. It just depends on what end you want to take. But I will say there are a couple statements that could only be universal. As for speed, things get even less certain, as in some instances Apollo's arrows are treated as top-tier attacks due to being faster than light, and second only to Zeus, who has time hacks, and in other instances Zeus' casual jabs are stated to be near light speed, and then we literally get a timer with Zeus throwing a flurry of jabs in a time frame 1,000,000 times shorter than before, placing him literally nearly 1,000,000 times faster than light. And even if you disregard the near light speed statement, just taking the distances Zeus covers in this amount of time, he should be multiple times faster than light anyways. Ares and Heimdall can easily keep track of him, but then get completely blitzed by Poseidon, which is important because Sasaki, who bested Poseidon, believes a fight between him and Huang, Hades' opponent, would be a good one, meaning he couldn't just blitz the king of the beginning, otherwise there would be no fight. And in turn, this means that he wouldn't be able to blitz Hades either. This is supported by the statement from Zeus himself that no one can match Hades in speed. There's also Hajun, who laid waste to half of Helheim in a day, which would require him to travel at absolutely ludicrous speeds, but this is a more questionable meta. Hades is also one of the smartest gods, if not the smartest in the entire series, up against his ultimate hard counter, fighting against the odds against an opponent with two distinct ways to completely negate his attacks, and yet Hades still figured out a way to close that gap and only lost to some plot armor bullshit. So, Hades versus Boros, my two goats. Who comes out on top? Well, it highly depends on what interpretation you want to go with. On the low ends, with Hades being planetary and Boros being large planetary, Boros would hold a significant advantage in power, and in speed he'd be over 100 times faster than light, meanwhile Hades is only light speed. However, One Punch Man has its own weird anti-statements, such as Boros only kicking Saitama at light speed according to the artist of the manga, Murata, so they might have near equal speed on the low ends. In this case, it would come down to their abilities, which Boros should be better at. Hades is definitely more skilled in close quarters, but that wouldn't be enough to overcome Boros' insane regeneration and long-range advantage. However, on the high ends of their scaling, Hades would absolutely dwarf Boros by orders of magnitude in both speed and power, and would likely crush him in a battle. And there you have it, my general thoughts on this battle of Dominator and King. As for other fights, the hacks abilities of these characters don't really matter all that much because it just all depends on what interpretation you go with for the actual stat scaling. On the high end, pretty much all of them would just kind of win, but on the low end, they would also pretty much all just kind of lose. Certain abilities like Buddha's Foresight, Beelzebub's Vibrations would definitely help, and the ultimate trump card would be Zeus's Time Punch, but with a big enough speed and power gap, a lot of these just wouldn't really matter at the end of the day. So I think a lot of what I said about Hades also carries over to gods like Buddha, Zeus, Poseidon, Beelzebub, and so on. Like I said, I am dying to talk about Record of Ragnarok. After the travesty that is Season 3 of One Punch Man, it was so refreshing seeing a story I love getting adapted so well. Especially with a duel between kings. I have many ideas that I want to do for inverse videos and even some narrative stuff, so I'm hoping there is interest in it here on my channel. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. And with nothing else to say, I wish you a great rest of your day. Goodbye.